Guru Nation, welcome to another episode of Random Musings from the Clinical Trials Guru. My name is Dan Sfera. I am interviewing, probably first time ever on this podcast, but if you're a hardcore fan, you want to check out and confirm, I'll give you a prize if you can find where I interviewed another founder of a CRO, because I don't think I did. And so today we have Kareem Mohammed he's the founder of Tranquil Clinical Research, which is a CRO. He's going to explain how he got started. He's going to explain his background. I know a lot of you guys out there, I'm getting like tweets. I probably got a DM the other day from somebody wanting to start a CRO. I'll get into my thoughts on this too, and it's always good to have other people's thoughts and experiences. And so thank you very much, Kareem, for coming on. How's everything?
That's great. Thank you for having me, Dan. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to Guru Nation today.
Yes, they're looking forward to it, and they're going to be contacting you quite a bit. And we've interviewed one of your employees numerous times, Victoria Welsh. She's actually a shout out to her for putting us together.
She's phenomenal.
How did you let's talk, I guess, about her first. I didn't think we were going to start with her, but how did she come to you? Like, how did you find her?
So I think Tori found us. We had posted a position for CRA. She applied. Her persistence and her character was very engaging. I interviewed her several times. A couple of my employees did a peer review, and it was a pretty easy hire, to be honest. Yeah.
Now, I have a question. So, persistence, there's a fine line between being persistent and being annoying. And everybody kind of has their own barometer for, everyone has their own preferences. Some people actually prefer persistence bordering on annoyance. I don't know where I'm at, honestly, on that. I guess it depends on my mood. But so, what are your thoughts on this?
I guess it's twofold, right? Because it can be annoying. But I'll tell you, I had an employee that I interviewed. I like them. I sent them to the client. The client interviewed and he said, "Kareem, it's your choice. You pick." I said, "Okay, fair." So I called the potential employee up. I said, "Listen, I'm going to open this interview process up to a few more candidates that I wanted to talk to. I put them on pause once we'd selected you." And he said something to me that I'll never forget. He said, "Kareem, that job is my job. You can't give my job away." He said, "I want to work at Tranquil Clinical Research. That senior CRA position you have open has my name on it and no one else's." That level of, and I said, "Let me process it. I'll get back to you on Monday." He called me back in 30 minutes. He said, "Listen, my wife and I are celebrating my new position at your company because I know that's my job."
Wow.
His persistence, his eagerness to work in this company, it sold itself, right? Because ultimately that's what you want. You want folks that want to work in your organization because you know they're going to work.
Right.
Yeah.
But I didn't even think of this angle now, but you're going to get, it's not just the people that want to start CROs. You're going to get a lot of people because Victoria's getting fans now. And then, they're going to hear her story. Now they're going to hear you. You own a CRO. Now they're going to start emailing you and using these same tactics. So I think the important thing is you also should be able to back up what you're saying, because I get those emails a lot too. Like, "Hey, this job is mine," and then I look at their resume and there's no experience. Maybe you're a good fit for something, but not for this particular position. So be prepared for that. What do you have to say to job seekers right now that are ready to contact you?
I guess what we're looking for when we hire someone is, we're in a source verifiable industry. Just like you said, if you're going to say something about yourself, whether it's education or experience, no, I'm going to validate it. And we're going to test the heck out of you to make sure that you know what you say you're going to know. I tell my employees, your shield is I don't know. I'd rather someone tell me, "Look, Kareem, I don't know this, but I'm going to learn it. I'm going to own it, and I'm going to get back to you." Versus someone who's going to make something up, Dan, and then it's easy to call them on their bluff when they don't know something and they're positioning themselves to get into your company. And it's so easy to like you to weed out those candidates. So just be sincere, be yourself. If you're good at something, focus on that, and eventually the right position will appear for you, and you won't have to sell yourself. The other thing I tell folks when I'm interviewing them is that as much as I'm interviewing them, I want them to interview me. I want them to know that this is a place they want to work at. Because there are some companies, when you're a CRA1, you just don't want to work at, right? Or when you're a senior CRA. So just know that when you're in an interview process, make sure you are actively interviewing that company you're going to go work for, because you're going to be working for them.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because that has been my strategy. I'm more from the site side. Only recently have I gotten into the CRO space. But when I'm interviewing candidates for my sites, because study coordinator have a lot of turnover too, just like CRAs. They don't get burned out as easily, but there's turnover usually because of the salary. They feel that that they could level up and become CRA now. So when I interview, I usually hire a coordinator like for raw potential. I don't necessarily need experience, but you're right. The goal of the interview for me is to get them comfortable to be honest, which is very difficult to do because I hate when I interview people and then I get that canned response. You can tell that's the only thing they say to everybody who interviews them. And that to me, I mean, if there's potential there, I will try to extract the truth. If there's no potential there, I'll just end the interview because I think it's nonsense to get, and it's obvious when you give a canned response. So I always try to find out, if I'm going to invest in you, I mean, I'm going to educate you, I'm going to train you. I don't want you leaving in a year. I want to know what you want to accomplish. I always ask them, what do you want to accomplish in the 5 years in clinical research? Like, what are your goals? If that's what you want to do, and if I want that person, then I say I could help you do that if I actually can. So I'm really glad you brought that up. I haven't really heard too many hiring people in a hiring capacity mention that, but I think it's very important.
Absolutely.
So let's get into your background. Okay, how does one even start a CRO? Like, what's your origin story?
Well, I started off as when I was 18. I was a medic in charge of a 911 EMS unit here in Houston, and from there just evolved in the medical space. I wanted to go to medical school. Went through undergrad. I worked at a level 1 trauma center for 4 years at night. All of the residents and attendings knew that I wanted to go for medical school, so I got to do all of the things they did. They opened chest. I opened chest. Really cool stuff and a great experience. Ultimately, when I graduated, I worked for University of Texas Health Science Center as a study coordinator. And instead of going to medical school, a CRO in Virginia recruited me up. And I worked with them for 9 years, a global CRO. Great experience, good company. I learned a lot.
Wow! So you started in academia basically. After
I did.
the med tech, you got into the research world through the University of Texas.
Correct.
Interesting. Okay. So how long were you at UT before the CRO kind of recruited you?
I was there for 2 years. So I was doing their investigator-initiated research and their sponsored research for the Department of Internal Medicine. So hepatitis C, HIV, lots of different indications. A great place to work, lots of good folks. And I think what most study coordinators face is you reach a place where you reached your maximum potential pretty quickly. And if like myself, I wanted to pursue more and do more, that's where that interest in working for, biopharma or CRO, it was easy. And the minute I put myself out there, I didn't realize the amount of work and the capacity to work in this space. It's limitless, really.
Yeah, yeah. We just interviewed someone from pretty high up in a academic institution somewhere in Kansas, and he was saying, like academia is not for everyone, but he believes it's a great place to get started. And you'll know within a year if that's a good fit for you or not. But if you have no experience, that's a good place to put in your time. but you got out quickly. Did you always know that you wanted to be an entrepreneur in this space, or like how did that? Were you born entrepreneur, or you just kind of saw the opportunities?
So my personality is one where whenever I see a place for improvement, I take that initiative to improve. So that's what I've done throughout my clinical research career. When I left a global CRO, I went and I did consulting for other global CROs. I saw this place for improvement in our industry that entrepreneurial spirit in myself said, I can. It's easy. What we do, Dan, isn't rocket science, right? It's not crazy complicated. It's just there's a certain eloquence to doing it the right way, putting the quality in that needs to be done. And that's where my entrepreneurial spirit, my personality of wanting to evolve and bring this improvement to this space kicked in. And I said, I'm going to open my own. And I had the opportunity. One of our clients that I was consulting with, they had lots of turnover. And I presented. So I said, let me bring in my own CRA team. I want to do this. This is something I want to do. Would you support it? She said, absolutely. And now that person, she retired as the VP of Clinical Operations for a global biopharma and device company. She's one of our strategic advisors. She's seen our evolution from the stimulus of helping me create a CRO to now she's advising on how we continue our growth.
Wow. So you went from coordinator at UT for 2 years to CRA at traditional CRO. And how long were you a CRA there?
So I was a CRA with that company. I monitored for 9 years.
9 years as a full-time CRA
And then,
employee.
correct, correct. And then, as a CRA, that evolution of you start doing lead CRA and CTM. So I did lead CRA and CTM with
Okay.
that. So
Never like had a side hustle or anything. Just full on 9 years. You put in the time. I'm
correct.
asking because a lot of people are watching and there's like, yeah, I want to start a CRO. Well, look at the time, Kareem put in. I mean, 9 years, 2 years before that. So that's over a decade already before he's even considering breaking out as a. Now, do you think you could have like went out on your own earlier?
I think you know, to master a certain skill set, it takes time. If you, it's like management. You can't just throw someone in and expect them to be a good manager. That management style evolves. They have to learn themselves, learn that space. You have to know your space and become, that expert as a monitor, as a trial manager, as a project manager. Learn that entire space. And I didn't learn everything it took to know before I opened a CRO. I consulted with other global CROs as a PM, CTM. But even then, when you open your own CRO, there's things you're like, I need to buy what? I need to do what?
Yeah.
What is? Yeah. So there's a lot of new ground to break, but I think you have to have a core foundation before you can have your own CRO.
Yes, and we can get into business the business model of CRO. So I just wanted to get the origin story because a lot of people maybe they're a coordinator for a year and then they want to open a CRO, and I'm letting them know, look at Kareem. I mean, look at the time he put in. Forget about me. I mean, I started in '05. I didn't even think of doing this until 2017 when we
Right.
started. So it's like it's about the same amount of time as you. And for me, everyone who listens knows I don't actually want to be a CRO owner. It's to me it's a necessary evil to get closer to the sponsors. But you have a very good business from the CRO, and so I'm interested to get your perspective on that. But before that, I want to get into this next decade because we're in a transformational transitional period, I guess, in research. It feels like it, at least. Who knows if that's true? But I'm hearing, like, I go to these conferences, I talk to PIs all the time, I talk to small sponsor companies a lot, and I'm getting so much I guess feedback in a negative way about the big CROs. And you used to never hear that. Like when I started in '05, it was the big CROs were like everything in this industry. And I think we're like now in 2020, we're at a place where that's starting to change and maybe create opportunities for smaller CROs like you. What do you think about this?
But right now, I think in our market, we have over 3,000 CROs. So I have a very competitive landscape.
Wow.
Uh, the big CROs, they serve a function, right? They have their own phase one units and their own labs and their own, company of 2,500 people. I think what people need to realize is that a global CRO is going to do the same thing that my company can do on a phase one, on a phase two study. Their ability to scale is different, right? They already have this big team, but 90% of the time when they take a study on, they're still looking to assess a team. And so many times they have to hire on, they're bringing on contractors to fill a need. And I think that's where, for me, it's um, the landscape doesn't, a CRO is a CRO. It's the way you deploy that study and that specificity it is what makes us different. I think I'm hearing the same, right? When you go to conferences like JPM and you meet a lot of these entrepreneurial biopharma executives who've
Yeah.
had, 7 different companies, they say the same. They won't work with a global CRO until they have to, until they're at that big global phase three,
Right.
because they see this decay in quality from the work they used to provide to what they're providing now.
Right, and it's I do think I see the same thing, especially with these small startups, biotech or like early stage, very early stage. Not most of them not even went public yet, right? Because that's already for me at least that's too big of a company. But like really early stage, I mean, they're first of all they know that the big CROs are not even gonna put their best teams on their study. I mean, they're gonna put like their D list CRAs. So they'd rather have this guy on YouTube who wears a hoodies because they know that I'm interested in other things
That's
besides
right.
monetizing. Like I'm curious in the science behind this, and I'll only take on projects that I think have potential to turn into something big. So I think there is a space for like and you have a bigger CRO than mine, but you're still considered what like a small, like a niche.
Absolutely. I'm still considered small, right? Though we have global partnerships, we
Mm.
can deploy a global study. We're a small company compared to mid-size. When they're considering a mid-size CRO now, you have to have over 250 employees, right? So that's where what you mentioned something so specific to me is that when someone's taking on these studies, now we're dealing a lot of the sexy science, and you don't need your D team monitoring or project managing or trial managing that study. You need someone who's going to work to understand the science, work to understand the
Right.
indication, and know how to monitor it, right? Whereas you put your D team on there, this is their baby, this is their early phase study. They're not getting the best possible work, right? So that's
Yeah, the irony is you actually need their A team for the pilot studies,
right.
but there's not enough money there, so these big CROs don't do that. They don't put or they don't even take on these projects.
We see now, like when you go to look for clients. I come across clients that tell me they only work with global companies because they're the only company that can do their study. And there's going to always be that space. Our space, Dan, is to work for those companies that want a company like mine, that want that quality that we're going to put in every single time. And we work to be the indication expert, to be the CFR and or GCP expert. And we tell our clients that we're always going to do the right thing. And if we can't, we're not going to do it. I'm not going to make it up and tell you I did something just so I can get paid. That's not
Yeah.
where I want to be as an organization.
Now you're full time in the CRO space, so you're more connected to this. You have your ear closer to the ground than I do when it comes to CROs. The complaint from CRA or even sponsors, everybody is that the turnover, CRA turnover, and that's usually because these bigger CROs, and I don't think they've stopped. A few of them have. Like Covance, I hear is very good with employees, and I'm actually amazed at how Covance is able to succeed in that environment. But like the billing model for CROs used to be how many days on site can you keep these CRAs at, which is counter to what the CRAs want as far as their quality of life. So I know that used to be the biggest metric last decade. Is it still the case now?
So for most CROs, their objective is to maximize the amount of time their team is out of the home office, their CRA. Because the more a CRA is out of the home office, the more billable they are to you in any organization, including my own. The biggest differentiator for me is that we don't have attrition. We've never had an employee willingly quit us. We've let go folks because they didn't meet our quality mark. What we do differently is what no CRO in this industry is doing. We have a benefits program, a quality of life program that's unmatched. I call it an employee for life philosophy. When an employee is hired, I'm going to do everything I can, Dan, to make sure we keep them. So we pay the entire benefit suite. There's not one benefit my employee pays for. We pay everything. But then outside of that, when my employee is coming home on a Friday night because they've been gone all week, I'm buying my employee, him or her, and their family dinner on Saturday.
Really?
We do these things to make sure that our employees, to me, gratitude's a verb. My folks, they're generating income. They're doing the important work that I represent to my clients that we do. If I don't maintain them and give them that quality of life and show them we care and we're grateful, it's easy for them to take another job.
I like that strategy.
Yeah. Everybody in this company, in my company, I'm sure they receive other offers or other opportunities.
Sure.
But no one is ever left to pursue another opportunity.
Wow. That's amazing. I really like that that idea of getting them the Saturday dinner. That's pretty cool. So what made you do that?
So Dan, I monitored for 9 years straight with one company. I give my heart and soul to my work, and I'll be gone. Some weeks it's like I did 75 hours and it's not even Friday yet.
Yeah.
Come in on a Friday, and then you have to do trip reports because you're turning around that turn and burn. You're on Monday, you're back on the road.
Mm-hmm.
So you're working on Sunday, and there's no quality, there's no time. So I know what it's like to be on the road. I know that those small things that my company can do to give me quality of life, to show me they care, that means the world. And then it can't be one instance, right? It has to be something you consistently do for your folks.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. See, as I grow the CRO, matter of fact, it's more of a philosophical issue. I don't even know if I want to truly grow it, but obviously we're going to grow more than we are now. Retention will become something I keep in mind. My thing has always been, it's similar to that. Like I've spent money on things we shouldn't have for employees, but what I really do is try to connect them. I truly try to figure out what they want, even if it will work against me at some point, because I know that while they're with me, they know I'm helping them do that, and they're going to give me all their effort that they have. And
That's right.
And in that period of time, they don't leave. So that's, I think, something in a combination of what you're doing. I think it's very good versus what I like my strategy. I think there's a lot of ways to improve retention, but I don't think these big CROs care. I really don't think they care about this.
So you mentioned Covance. I did a consulting period with them. They do something very well. And same with the global CRO I worked with.
Okay.
They used to meet every year with their entire team and train. And there's something, when you're a regional employee and you don't feel that kind of family, that ownership in your company, you miss it. So those meetings gave you ownership in your company. You got to meet the people you talk to every day on the phone, your project manager, your VP of ops, whoever it is you're talking to. You got this opportunity to spend time with them, to eat with them, to train with them. What we do in my company, Dan, is we meet twice a year. in person. The first part in the spring, we come to NASA in Houston.
Hmm.
Work hard so we play hard. Last year, we went on a dinner cruise. We went to Moody Gardens. We did a rainforest tour. Then we train and we eat together and we play together. And then in the fall, we every year we meet in Disney World. We do the same thing. We play
Wow.
hard
So
and then we train.
what does your CRO look like, just so we get an idea? How many employees, and then full time versus contractors, like, and then vendors. I mean, because there's so much I want to get into right now.
So right now we're close to 25 plus, and we're growing. We have a lot of partners. So biostats is a place where it's really hard, Dan, to hire a full-time biostatistician.
Yeah, they're expensive.
They're expensive, and that's a place that there's a lot of turnover. So right now we aligned with an impressive partner that has that same kind of quality that we're looking for.
Okay.
Same with regulatory. We have someone in the company that can support regulatory, but where we're going to not fail ourselves is if we are not the expert, we bring in those strategic partnerships. We have a really good regulatory company. Depending on what data set we're using, we can do DM. We have our own data manager team. But then if we have a big study that needs, then we align with a data management company. So my goal is to make sure that I fulfill the need of every project. As far as partnerships throughout the globe, we have an Australian CRO, Japan recently signed
Wow.
on.
Which
Germany,
Australian CRO is it? Data Farm?
it's neurosciences. It's a
Okay.
neuroscience group, the Flore Institute. So
Okay.
pretty impressive group of folks.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So, what are your thoughts on the fact that now with technology? I think I reported on this last year. I read an article that said by 2024 or something, sometime soon, uh, 70%. The number was much higher than 50, so I don't know the exact number, but 70% of all clinical trial budgets are going to go to vendors. So not CROs, not sites, but vendors, like tech vendors, like EDC, for example. Because like in my limited experience of bid proposals, the most expensive thing was the EDC because we don't have that in house. And yeah, you try to get partnerships with people, so you can, there's some arbitrage there. But like with these big CROs, like they own their own EDCs,
Or
and
their own
then
licenses, right?
right, or
Their
their
own
own
license.
license, but not just EDC, but like all the data management stuff, all the IWS, all the vendors, right? They have like they charge the sponsors for this, so there's like a lot of fat built into the budgets. Uh, and then what goes to the CRAs is really not fair because they're the ones doing the majority of the work, right? So this is like something that I think is going to continue at these big CROs, but maybe that's opportunity for people like us. What do you think about this?
It's like one of the places I see that uh, CRAs need to be ready for is this transition from reduced SDV, targeted SDV, monitoring only the risky data. There have been tons of studies that says only 2% of the data is changed through monitoring, right? So that's quite powerful. So what is the function of monitoring? Our primary job is a serious patient safety. Now I think what you're going to see is a lot more risk-based monitoring, a lot of the remote. So there's a space now for those companies that are just going to do, that where they apply, AI and machine learning, and they can pull EMR data direct, so you don't have to be on site. You can get it redacted on your own machine in your office, wherever you are, and you can monitor EDC to EMR remotely, and you're only targeting specific data, the primary endpoints, the safety, the eligibility. You're looking at data very strategically. I think that's a place where, as a company, as an organization, we're positioning ourselves there
Hmm.
because we see that that's where it's going to go. And then with digital health, all of the direct to patient sort of modalities that are coming across, I think you're going to see a change in the way we start doing clinical trials. There's a removal of the necessity of having a clinical trial center being the place where the patient gets all of their exams. They can wear a watch now and you can get a blood pressure, you can get an EKG, and you can get a heart rate. The patient can do the QL on a laptop, on a device, on their watch, right? So you're going to see a change here with technology. I think the companies that are going to be the most productive in moving away from the CRO model are the ones that adopt technology and apply it to some space in a clinical trial. I think EDCs, I mean, they're never going to go away. You have to have a case report form. I wouldn't personally build an EDC because the cost of validation and making sure I would partner with a really good EDC. So that's what we've done. But as far as now, if I can take an EDC and I have a partner who can give me EMR remotely that's HIPAA compliant, now I can remotely monitor anything, right? And then we reduced the number of on-site visits, so we reduced the cost of monitoring, and there's still a space for monitoring on-site, your SIVs, your qual visits, you just reduce. So I think that's where the evolution of the CRO space is going to be. And there are already niche companies that are already, all they do right now, Dan, is they do remote monitoring.
Right. Because I remember like 2016, risk-based monitoring was like such like a buzzword, I mean, and then you kind of like quieted down. Is that because it's just become normal or what?
No,
Because I'm still seeing 100% SDV when I
that's
go.
right. We're not seeing a reduced SDV like you would think. I think the problem is it's systems. So many companies have built their own risk-based analytics that's not as effective as you would have thought it would be. I think there are some very successful ones. We partner with one called Clue Points, through the FDA uses, but at the same time, these systems are so expensive. Are you really saving money on a clinical trial versus? I mean, that's a question you have to.
And is it better? Is it better than
That's
hiring
right.
two CRAs for that site?
Right. And the point of risk-based monitoring is to mitigate risk. Is that really the product? Have we now reduced risk to the patient, risk to the data with this smart system that costs, $150,000 per study?
So you're saying basically the idea is great, but the technology is not there yet.
I think there's a potential for technology to improve, but there's ways we can apply the mitigation of risk without having to apply this kind of sexy AI machine learning that's so expensive and cost prohibitive, even on your phase 1 and your phase 2 studies. Because when you look at the way they model their data, they have to have this huge amount of data to be able to reduce risk in your data, where that's not really the intent of mitigating risk. You don't need to have the data. You need to plan where the risks are and then work to mitigate them throughout the course of the study.
I mean, extremely fascinating. And what about virtual trials? You're hearing a lot about this now.
You see it every conference, right? This kind of
that replaced virtual trials replaced risk-based monitoring as like the main topic.
It's a new buzz.
Yeah.
Honestly, I mean, it sounds great. I mean, if you were a clinician or if you're a patient and you're going to take a drug, you want to know that the testing's thorough. The place where virtual trials has a really nice place is you can now apply smart data sets and, again, this kind of AI machine learning to know what AE profiles you're going to expect. And so you better build your phase 1 and phase 2 studies. I think virtual studies are going to support your animal models, your computer models in a way we've never had support. But I don't see it taking away the patients on study any.
Yes. Plus the entire thing of getting patients. Like we forget this, that sites, investigators, the best ones enroll their own patients, right? It's like recruitment is such a distant number 2, like advertising is such a distant number 2 from number 1 of PI's private practice or site database. Like, so how are these virtual trials if they're eliminating most of the PIs? They'll just have one in each state, like is the current model now that some of these CROs are doing. Well, where are these patients coming from? Like, so they're relying on these vendors, which we're not going to name, but we know they're no good, right? I just don't understand how that could work because the patients still have to know about the study. It's not just it's not just the capability to recruit them. It's you have to convince them. There's like a sales process, and they pay attention to their doctors. Most patients, because their doctors, they treat them well. They're supposed to, at least, and so they have influence over the patients. But if you remove them, who do you have now? You have big pharma, which is like the most hated industry in the world, right? Probably not even a stretch to say that. Uh, so where are these patients? Who are they gonna trust? That's my biggest thing with virtual trials. Unless it's super easy to recruit, or maybe they partner with some influencer, like some blogger who's a disease influencer, and he or she has like a 1 million person email list, then you can get like 1% of that. It's good for your study. But I don't see that. I actually don't see a lot of these influencers out there at that scale.
I think that, when you look at what the FDA wants in their dynamic of patients on study, that virtual patient profile might be contrary to what the FDA has published. We want a, a very fluid demographic, not just, one single type of patient. And I'm not sure, but my guess would be you're going to get in the same type of patient in a virtual study that they're trying to avoid.
Right. And even now, we're getting into the age of personalized medicine. I'm already seeing, I know a doctor right now who's doing a study. He wrote, no, it's a she. She wrote an entire protocol. Okay, like an entire protocol, FDA submitted, IRB submitted for one patient. Like that's the whole purpose of this study. So look at all that time and effort they put into it. There's probably one very wealthy patient who could cover the cost. But still, we are coming towards this new paradigm of smaller studies, and virtual trials seems to target large volume. So even that doesn't make sense to me. But I'm sure there's a place for virtual trials, like you said, to be a supplement to something.
Yeah, when you're using the data to apply it to the clinic before you go into clinical trial, I think that's powerful. But the virtual trial itself, I think there's a dynamic there that really definitely needs to be worked out. And we're not, my CRO, we've not interacted with a study in a phase 1 or phase 2 or beyond that included virtual patients.
Yeah, I think the business model for virtual trials, I think who could win besides the obvious vendors who can get really good at recruiting patients and doing virtual trials are actually the sites. Like if you can become because remember, like what they're trying to do with these virtual trials is just keep one PI per state. So if you can be that one PI, or maybe in some of the bigger places, like they'll have a couple, like California and Texas. But if you can be like that site, I think you have a huge advantage over your competitors, and you can still do traditional trials as well. That's my thoughts on this. I don't know. I don't see it for the CROs, like the small ones, how we can take advantage of this trend right now.
Yeah, the way you take advantage of it, Dan, is we would have to start building in technology into our organizations that cost so much to build, design, and validate.
Right.
Because if you build a virtual trial design that's not validated, how trustworthy is your data? So it's a huge limitation for companies like yours and mine. So the companies that, CROs that are going to be successful at this are going to be your global CROs that have the backbone and the funds to deploy these sort of systems to validate and ensure that it's, and everything we do, my job's patient safety. That's one of my biggest concerns in a virtual patient. If you have one PI, an entire state, a state like Texas or California, how do I ensure my patient's safe? So then it goes back to those digital health direct-to-patient mechanisms that you can have where you know how your patient's doing in real time. I can pull up a screen and see there's patient 1, 2, 4, and all of their vitals are good. Or look, there's some outliers here. Let's send a query to this patient. Can you fill out this questionnaire? Are you feeling well? There's going to take a lot of thought processing and positioning to make sure it works well.
Yeah, it's so interesting. But I'm very bullish on our industry for this next decade. I mean, this is supposed to be a record year for clinical research. Just like last year was like the biggest year ever for clinical studies, right? 2020 is supposed to be even bigger. So going like, do you think the CRO model? Obviously, you like the CRO model because you wouldn't be doing it. But do
Right.
you do you think somebody watching or listening right now should start a CRO?
I'm because I'm an entrepreneur, because I started my own business, I'm never going to tell someone they can't or they shouldn't. If you feel like this is something that you can do, go for it. Just know that it's not easy. It's work. There are so many limitations to your growth that you have to overcome. I mean, so if I'm brand new to this, the biggest issue is to be a CRO, you need studies. How do you get studies, Dan? What's your mechanism for getting new work? That's an
Right.
obstacle every CRO struggles with.
Absolutely. Not to mention, when you're a CRO and you're applying for a study, that sponsor only needs one CRO, as opposed to that same study, even a small study, they'll need a couple sites, right? And then for the big studies, they'll need many sites, sometimes 100 sites. I think it's so much more practical. If you want to go the CRO route, you should. But if I think it's much more practical to start a site and then get studies, build a cash cushion, because I think sites are more profitable, at least from my experiences. I don't know about yours, but sites to me, there's bigger profit margins with a site. It's easier to get studies, and it's a little bit easier for employee retention. And then you don't need all this technology stuff that CROs you have to have now to be competitive. And I think if you want to start a CRO, it's much easier from the site level because you can build a phase 1 unit, or you can, and now sponsors want you because
That's right.
now you actually have something, and now you have influence over sites because you started out as a site. What sponsors really want is patients in their study. So what gives you the influence over these PIs as opposed to this other CRO? So I think that's the smart route to go, but it's just my opinion. But it's a lot of work running a CRO. I mean, I don't even do it full time, and we have one study right now, and it's still a lot of work. We
It's
have
a
one
lot of
we have one pilot study, me, four other people that are part time on it that are actually getting paid, and then an army of interns, and it's a lot of freaking work. And the margins are nothing compared to sites. I mean, it's like nothing. So be careful what you're getting into, guys, if you want to open a CRO, because they hear all these things. Though this is huge, big company, we can go public, and the site is not that glamorous. But though some of these sites make a ton of money.
no doubt. Yeah, I
So
think owning a CRO, I mean, I love what I do. I believe in what I do. If you think that you can come in and be a disruptor and bring something different to this space that we don't have in this space, and you have a value proposition that's going to give you a competitive edge, then you're golden, go for it. But if you don't, then your proposition is more valuable because now you can generate money and income from a site in a space where, you know, from a study level, at a site, you can bring in so many studies. From a CRO level, I have to compete to win one award, right? And then have this team ready to deploy and serve my team and work to avoid attrition and the all the limitations to the work we have and the constraints and making sure that we're within that to keep our clients happy. It's a task that so few folks can do and do well, and that's where we're trying in this space to be a disruptor, where my value
yeah,
proposition is to always do the work we have amazingly well.
yeah. I mean, the site thing is like, look, your example of when you apply and compete. against other CROs. Okay, you have to come in first place to actually have a business. You can't come in second. It's great. I come in second so many times as a CRO. At least that's what they told me, probably to be nice. But you don't get anything for that except the experience of doing a bid proposal and all that stuff, which is fine. Like I know how to do this now. With a site, if it's a 20 site study, 50 site study, you can come in 50th place on their list of sites. They're going to use you, and you can be top enroller, top 3 enroller. I mean, you have so much more room for error than you do as a CRO. And they will switch you so quick if they don't like you as a CRO, as opposed to with a site. The complication is, well, you have patients involved. Maybe you have patients ongoing. There, you have to do something horrible for the sponsor to shut down your site. But for a CRO, they do it like that.
Yeah, and the CRO, when we take on work, we're taking on the responsibility of the sponsor. They're delegating to us per CFR the things they're supposed to do. So imagine the weight and the heaviness of it. It's not something I will breach CFR and GCP if I don't do something the right way.
Right.
So that responsibility, that level of the work that we are now committed to, know that you have a lot of pressure on your shoulders as a CEO or as a founder of a CRO to make sure you are doing the work well. The
Yes.
sponsor is giving you their responsibilities. That's heavy.
Yeah. Without getting into too many details, are you satisfied with I guess your market share and profit margins for the business, or like are you comfortable with where you're at? Um, because other people watching might want to know these things.
So I guess the honest answer is you're never satisfied, right? As a business owner, if you're not growing, you're dying. Your business has to continuously grow and get new business. And that's, the struggle of pursuit of clients when you're in a competitive environment is what's my value proposition? How do I even get an introduction? Then how do I open that door with that sponsor that has 2 studies coming out when they have 3,000 people knocking at their door? So I'm never satisfied. I want to continue growing. I want to be a disruptor in this space. And to do that, I have to grow. I have to evolve and get more clients and develop our profile of studies and all of these new sexy, CAR T and immunotherapies. We have to do those studies because clients want to see that you have a history of doing them before they give you their study.
Yes. Immunotherapy, by the way, free advice for Guru Nation. That's the future of oncology. I'm taking a course on it right now. That's the one study we do have as a CRO. It's fascinating, and the PIs on this study are like, they're such
Brilliant.
huge fans of immunotherapy. Like they can't stop talking about it. At first it was just the guy who wrote the protocol, and I was like, all right, whatever, of course he's going to feel that way. But then it was the PIs doing the study too. They had no interest in this drug. They're like, this is amazing. So, free advice for Guru Nation: look towards immunotherapy if you're going to get started somewhere.
And it's not just going to be in oncology. It's going to move into autoimmune diseases and so many other indication spaces.
Wow. Wow. Uh, are you always looking for new CRAs?
We have a wait list right now
Okay.
of probably 17 folks that want to come into this company that I like. But I never turn someone away when someone sends something to me. I have at least some form of conversation, and I know who they are because then my scalability is something that a client's going to ask. Well, how do I know that you're small and you can do my study? Well, this is why I have a wait list of folks that want to come work for Tranquil Clinical Research. So,
Wow.
yeah, I'm always looking. So, unlike the global CROs who are always looking because they have so much turnover,
Right.
we're looking because we want to be able to grow and accommodate that next study.
Yeah, we have a lot of interns from our CRA Academy, similar people to Victoria, actually, that are willing to intern. Do you guys take on interns?
So we haven't yet because the problem with kind of the studies that we do, it's about utilization and billability. If I can cover the cost of an intern, getting them out to, because we're going to, big oncology centers, they're Mayo Clinic, they're MD Anderson, Memorial Sloan Kettering. It's cost prohibitive to have an intern that can't get to the site to learn so that's why, there's potential in risk-based monitoring and their kind of remote monitoring that we can definitely bring on. And it depends. It's kind of client-based. You have a nice opportunity where your clients are allowing you to have, junior folks monitoring with your senior folks. I mean, that's a good place to be.
Oh yeah, because they don't want to pay.
Yeah.
So that's why.
Yeah. I think interns is something that it's very attractive, especially as why would I not help someone develop in their career? And in turn, I get cheap or free work. I mean, that's a pretty good value proposition.
Right. And I think it's good for the sites too. I think like patient recruitment, there's opportunities for interns. Of course, through our CRA Academy, we give that oncology, you're monitoring this study, which is not going to end anytime soon. And the sponsor's liking the drug, so they're probably going to do a bigger study, which, by the way, by that point, we may need to collaborate because I am not ready for this, multi-site study. So we'll have to talk about that. But that looks like it's going to come hopefully once this pilot study's over. We're about halfway through this pilot study. Enrollment's slow because it's only one site, but that site is doing a good job of, first of all, saving the study, and now just at a kind of a steady pace, which I'm happy for, enrolling little by little.
Good on you for being successful in your work. And absolutely, when it comes to collaboration, I don't need to do everything. We want to just continue the work we're doing and work with good people. So I mean, even other CROs, we're willing to. I don't need to compete against everyone. We need to serve this space well, right? And there's an opportunity to collaborate. I'm there.
Yeah, I wonder if this model, because I know another CRO, a small one like your guys's, they're focused on Korean studies. So they only work with Korean sponsors. And they're smart because they created their own EDC. And then they have a good back end. I wonder if there's ever been three small CROs collaborating on a project, because I think there's actually more money to go around there than it would be to pay vendors.
What you see a lot in this space is once a CRO starts becoming something and competing against mid-size or global, you get acquired. That's kind of the exit strategy that a lot of folks who are serial entrepreneurs, they go for that easy exit. Will I reject that exit? I'm not sure. I want to be a disruptor in the quality of work that we deliver.
That's right.
So that's, if I can continue doing that, that's my goal.
And how long has Tranquil been around? When?
2013. So this is our seventh.
Wow. Congrats on that. Congrats on the success. Very interesting conversation. We can go on forever. I guess we will definitely do a part 2 because there's so much more to discuss. Yeah, I think anything else you want to add to this that we didn't cover?
There's a lot to cover. So I guess we'll hold for part 2.
We got to hold for part 2 because there's tons. I mean, we could literally go for another hour easily. Yeah, thank you very much, Kareem. This has been a classic interview. And Guru Nation, I hope you agree. Oh, how do people reach you? First of all, do you want people to reach you? Or should we send them to Victoria?
Victoria's got a great personality. That might be a great place. But yeah, if someone wants to contact me, my email is, do I throw out the email? What do you want, Dan?
Yeah, if you want to, and then I could put in the show notes too, a link to your Tranquil Clinical Research CRO as well, but I could put your email there if you want to give it out.
Sure, it's Karim, Karim, at tranquilconsulting.com. That's TRANQUIL consulting.com.
Wow, be prepared for emails. This video will go up next week, so you won't see anything this week. But next week you'll start seeing some stuff. So thank you very much, Kareem. I really appreciate this. Very insightful. I still think the first founder CRO I've ever interviewed. But I could be wrong, but I think I'm correct here.
Well, I'm
And
privileged, Dan. I mean,
well,
number
you know
one.
why? It's so hard to get these founders on because, this is a very secretive industry. And I think at the CRO level, even more so than the sites. Maybe for good reason, I don't know. But I feel like we can still have discussions on higher level things without worrying about giving away trade secrets. I mean, you
But
haven't
is
done
there
any of
really
that.
a lot of trade secrets in the CRO world? I mean, what
Well,
IP do I own? I mean,
well, one thing they don't want people knowing is they get paid for days on site by monitors.
well,
So, it's bad for their image, but that's what they do. But you got the quality of life thing figured out. Kudos to you. And some of the other ones do as well, like Covance. But yeah, those kind of things they're afraid of. So, yeah, man, thank you so much for coming on. We got
thanks,
to
Dan.
do more. And thank you, Guru Nation, for watching, listening, and we'll catch you all later. Bye bye.